Welcome back, everybody, to the very first Recruitment Uncensored of 2025. It's been quite a big break, so I think I had Alex on. I feel like it was like 4 weeks ago. It probably wasn't. On the 18th, I think, was the last one, or something like that. Anyway, so it's been such a gap. We were just talking in the green room. I feel like I'm still not a normal person still, having like 2.5 weeks off work. So I can't guarantee that I won't slip up at points today. It is hard to remember. So we'll see how we go. Um, but I'm starting the year off with what I think is a great subject, and we're going to have a really open and honest conversation today about, and Will's come on to share how not to fuck up when building a recruitment agency, basically. So I think there's a lot of we were talking in the gap about, a lot of business owners or people in general on the socials are not always completely honest, so everything's going swimmingly, everything's going amazing, but we all know we have ups and downs. So we're going to be going over some questions today, or I'm going to sort of talk about what he's learned, what he's realized is important. So hi Will, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
For anyone watching, before we start, I'm going to dive into the questions. If you are watching, if you've got any questions for Will, anything, any sort of comments you want to make as we go along, chuck them in. Anything I could have time to bring up, I will do. Anything we don't have time for, I can cover it off after in the chat anyway. So yeah, get involved if you're watching today. So first question. When did you sort of realise that your recruitment ideology didn't work?
So the absolute honest answer to that is probably kind of 2 or 3 years ago. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was persevering with something I probably knew deep down wasn't working, but I really didn't want it to not work. I really willed it and wanted it to work, which probably elongated a fair amount of underachieving and not being particularly reaching the level of success that I kind of would want to. So yeah, I think it was only really last year, and probably kind of June, July, August time, where I sat down and looked at everything and thought, right, this is a bit silly now. Like we've been in business for like 5, 6, 7 years, and we're still operating like we did on day one, from a number of perspectives. So my kind of, to give some context, my ideology was quite like sycophantic, I think is probably what you would call it. Like thinking, oh yeah, KPIs are evil. They're a mark of a toxic agency. They don't work, and people should be motivated by other things. And actually being really, it was almost like a hippie-ish kind of, yeah, let's just be free, and let's just start and finish when we want, and we do all of this. Like, and yes, it's great for employees. That really works, but actually in recruitment you need process, and you need structure, and you need to understand and respect the metrics. And I think for me, I was seeing recruitment far more as like an art, and thinking, well, all you need to do is be personable and kind of have the ability to understand what a client needs or a candidate wants to be successful, when actually you need to have that, but also you need to apply that a certain number of times to a certain amount of processes over a week for it to happen. And I think it wasn't until kind of, last year, the final kind of nail went in the coffin of me realizing, actually, we need to kind of rethink actually what we're doing and kind of recalibrate ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, because I think it's about balance, isn't it? So you can go too far. Some people can be way too KPI driven, and we know that can be really damaging, don't we? But then you can be too far the other way, like you said, almost that like hippie sort of, I'm not going to check on anything, and everyone can do what they want. And it's sort of that middle ground, isn't it, where it's about, I keep using the word balance, but it is about that, isn't it? And sort of not avoiding either or.
Yeah, and also it's about accountability. And I think for me, like I'm a weak manager, because I want to be liked, and that is a terrible trait to have in being a manager and looking after people. I've tried to be a leader, but actually sometimes you need to be a manager. You need to say and make people accountable for well, hold on, why have you not done this? And there has to be repercussions. And I think where I've been so desperate to be liked and wanted, I don't like awkward conversations and I don't like conflict. Again, terrible traits as a manager or a business owner. It's meant like things have, like cans have been kicked down the road, and stuff has kind of just been left and brushed under the carpet. Like I know was underperformance, they know was underperformance, but like there's a bit of an elephant in the room because we ain't talking about it and we're not actually doing anything to remedy it. And I think there has been quite a few times in the last 6 months especially where I've not known the answer to how to make something better or how to fix it, how to improve it, or for example,
Yeah.
why something happened, why we had all these dropouts in succession, and what's caused them and how we can prevent them. And I think that kind of led to a massive crisis of confidence. Like, shit, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, it's been a really kind of, I would say, interesting 6 months or so.
And what you said there about sort of not knowing, like the accountability. I know because I hear about it, speak to people. There's a lot of agencies, like the poor performance, where you've got people, one or two or however many people, and I go in and I think or I hear about it and think, how are they still there? And it's because there's not this sort of effective process of monitoring performance. And actually, the consultants want to know what they're doing well, where they need to improve. And so like I said, we don't want to go too far. I personally believe you don't want to go too far the other way, because if you've got 1,000,001 KPIs and you're making it all about the numbers too much, people just fixate on that and they forget about what they're actually doing. But otherwise, you're going to have people coasting in your agency that you're paying a salary that are shit, essentially. And you've got them now for months and months and months and months and months, and they're draining your business.
I think a massive thing for me was ego, right, and perception, and caring too much about what I think people perceive our agency to be like. Like for me, if we were to like lose headcount, that'd almost be like shrinking and like defeat. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think it's almost like keeping those people in to save face, really. So it's I think there needs to be that like level of accountability that is actually implemented and enforced without being a complete arsehole, and without being like petty and pedantic about it.
Yeah. So Alex is watching today. I know we both know Alex. Looking forward to hearing a real view of things. You will be getting a real view. Ross is watching, really impressed by this, watching on YouTube, commenting on LinkedIn. That is that's pretty impressive,
Amazing.
actually.
Incredible, man. What a guy.
Yeah, sort of quite emotional and choked up over that, actually. Well done, Ross. So let's go to question 2. So what would you, because hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? What would you do differently if you started all over again?
So I would have much more stringent processes and almost standard operating procedures, like a standard operating procedure Bible in place for people to work to. And I suppose I would change myself, and I'd be a lot more I would, what's the word? I don't want to say I would be more of a fucking arsehole, but no, I would be more of someone who doesn't allow poor performance, and makes an environment, creates an environment which allows people to do really well. And actually, being a good manager isn't just giving people holiday when they want and all of this other stuff. It's actually getting the very best out of people. It's making sure that they're hitting their their targets and they're earning their commission in order
Reaching their potential.
That's it, reaching their potential. Whereas actually, if you just let people coast, you're doing them a disservice. So I think I would go back and have those difficult conversations and say, well, actually, this is probably why you're not hitting target. It's because your stats and your KPIs are shit. Because now it's difficult to transition from that really relaxed hippie kind of KPIs are garbage, blah blah blah, to right, you need to be doing 10 calls a day. Like, it's very difficult to transition from that. So if you start from the very beginning and you have those expectations of like that, this is what this environment's like, I think it'd make it a lot more conducive for being a good and successful environment, rather than just being like, yeah, you know, we're good at what we do, it'll just look after itself, have a few good conversations, we'll make some placements, you know, jobs are good in. And I do think, you know, there
Yeah.
was 2022, especially, and a bit 2023, kind of masked that, and also almost made it like, because it was a much better and much nicer kind of environment, it made very average recruiters look very good. And you know, the last
Yeah.
couple of years have exposed that, so you know, created a bit of an unnatural like environment for what is like good. Like someone who did 250k back in 2022, you know, it'd be very difficult to do that again now. So yeah, it almost create like an artificial environment. So yeah, so that's processes and being a better manager personally is what I would do. So yeah.
And I think a lot of people find it difficult to say, you know, like I'm talking about being a better manager. Like I know I didn't do it for very long when I was working for an agency. I was doing it for about a year and a half or something like that. And I really was shit because I had zero self-awareness. I
Yeah.
was, you know, I am naturally a fiery person, but I didn't have the sort of understanding of myself I do now. This was years ago. And I was like, I must have scared the shit out of him because I was like 100 miles. He was a newbie as well, bearing in mind. We worked
Yeah.
remotely and I was just 100 miles an hour, get things done yesterday, not explaining anything, prioritizing my own work.
Yeah.
And would I have admitted at the time that I wasn't being the best manager? Absolutely not. Like, I
Mm.
don't even know if I understood it really, but you know, it's that sort of, you know, actually looking in the mirror and being like, actually, I probably
Yeah.
or really do need to change some things about myself to get the best out of my people and for the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
to grow.
Yeah. And do you know what? I think when you work in relatively small like businesses where it's quite close knit, and you all do end up being friends, because like, you know, the people who work for OX7, we're all very similar and we all really get on. Like there's no like there's never animosity or arguments or anything like that. So you know, me almost being like one of them makes it really difficult to create that degree of separation. Whereas like, look, I'm
Yeah.
taking my kind of friend, let's have a drink at the pub hat off, and I'm putting my manager hat on. What the fuck have you been doing last week? Like it's very difficult to do that, and
Mm,
especially do it kind of midway through someone's tenure. It's almost like, well, hold on, why is Will all of a sudden like busting our balls? Like, what's going on here? So it's a difficult thing to implement midway through. So it'd be much easier to do it, you know, like be like that from the very beginning.
yeah. I knew, right, when you said the word SOPs, I knew that this guy was going to literally get very excited about it behind the scenes. I knew he'd be
Yeah,
watching.
yeah.
Ops guy here, Sty is watching. So yeah, can't grow and scale without them. Um, oh, some of these comments are just making me laugh. Will, you have a pokey on your nose.
He's
I
such
told
a.
you one or to both of us might get abused today on the show, depending on who's watching.
I just want to know
Honestly,
how old that picture of Nick is. It must be from about 10 years ago.
is it?
Completely different man. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Need to
He's had a
update
very
it,
good
Nick.
time since then. I think so. Yeah.
Let me see if we've got any other comments. I think I've brought all the main ones. Okay, cool. So, next question for you then. I think I know what you might say for the answer for this, but obviously let's ask you it anyway for the people
Yeah.
watching. What do you feel is more important then, people or process?
So when I first started, and for a good few years, I said people. You know, it's all about the people you bring to the business. And again, I think there was this whole drive a few years ago of like hire based on attitude rather than anything else. And I really bought into that. You know, and hence hiring lots of people I like and I get on with. You know, and thinking that you could insert any personality into any process, whereas actually the process I feel is the most important thing. And you know, going back to the SOPs, and completely and utterly agree, like you need those to have a successful business. People need to know and understand what they should be doing. There has to be a framework that people work to, because how can you identify when there's any issues, or you know, when there's any bottlenecks or anything like that, without having something recorded and a framework in place? You just can't, because it's just all so wishy-washy, and you know, people don't know what they're working to. So I think having a strong process is incredibly important, and actually by doing that, it widens the net of people you can bring in and then give them that process to work to. Whereas I don't feel as though you could go kind of mass mass market to find anyone and get them to do a really wishy-washy process or really wishy-washy kind of like work day. So we when we well I've got a new starter who started yesterday. Like, we're going through stuff in really granular detail, whereas before it kind of be like, look, this is what recruitment is. It's actually really simple. You just talk to people, you get them jobs, you talk to clients, you find them candidates. Piece of piss, don't worry about it. Throw it in the deep end, get on the phone this afternoon, do a few cold calls, I'll tell you where you've gone wrong, and basically just get better. Whereas actually that's doing that person a real disservice. And you're, as a trainer, you're probably thinking, oh my god, like, what the fuck's he talking about? But now I spend a good kind of 2 or 3 months going through our SOPs, what I think we should be doing and what the workflow should be and what you should do in different scenarios, writing it all down and then refining it, and then basically training that in a way which is engaging. So I think by far and away, process is more important. People obviously is important, but having the right process to work to far outweighs having potentially the right personality. Because again, one of my kind of sycophantic visions would be that I basically created an office of just clones of me where everybody's the same. And, that wasn't great for anything. It wasn't great for diversity. It wasn't great for whatever. And actually accepting that, having the right processes in place means you can bring a much wider range of people on board and you have a much more diverse workforce as a result.
Yeah. I've got sort of a different view on that slightly. So I think I agree with you with everything you said on the process side of things. I do think it's really important, especially when you bring on, like you said, the new people, so they know sort of, you can take them through that sort of induction initial process. You can get that they know what they're doing, they know what to expect. There's boundaries, and that's whether they're experienced or not, right? And so that's fine. But I do think that people, because we're in a people focused business as well, people are really important. What I resonate with is what you said there about not having a sea of people that replicate you, because that's what a lot of managers do, is they hire based on, oh, well, they're like me and I was a good recruiter, or I am a good recruiter, so they're going to be great.
Yeah.
And actually that isn't true. You want a variety of different people, because different people have different strengths, different things they bring to the table to balance it out. But you can have the best processes in the world, but if you have got a group of people with shit attitude, no drive, no respect for what they do or you, or all these things come into it, processes ain't going to work.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right? I could be wrong. But I think the people, and I've seen in businesses, and you might have experienced this in the past, Will, where even you get that one bad apple and they're toxic. And again, the processes don't matter because they fuck it up for everybody. I don't know if you've ever had that in any agencies you work in before.
I've definitely been in agencies where there's been a bad apple and it is absolutely like toxic, and it spreads, and it makes it very difficult to do your job and very difficult to kind of be in that environment. And you know what, sometimes those apples when they're not dealt with, it does spread, and you get other people like inheriting that, or not inheriting, but like absorbing that negativity, absorbing that, I don't know, like just terrible attitude towards everything, and it makes a whole office like just a horrible place to be.
Trying to bring everyone else down with them as well, half the time.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Actively disengaged, essentially, and they need to go because they're not going to change, and they're going to bring other people down with them. So it's not just recruitment. You get it in all walks of life. But
that was like me at school. That basically describes me in school. Just disengaged and a little shit.
The teachers would say the same. Yeah, toxic. My poor brother and sister. Are you Kate O'Neill's sister? Yeah. They'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then my sister, they get treated differently because of me. My poor brother and sister.
Yeah.
Toxic to the school. Right, we've had some comments come in. Everyone's really active in the chat today, so I'm going to bring some of them up. So Jen James, surely you need both processes and also good people. Both need to work. Is it simultaneously or simultaneously that you pronounce that word?
I say simultaneously. And I completely agree with Jen. You're absolutely right. Yeah, processes need to work alongside good people. So yeah, I think that they do need to work together unequivocally. But for me and
Yeah.
from my kind of experience, the process needs to be slightly more important than
Well, like you said, it
the
needs to
people.
come first. You need to do it from the start, don't you?
Yeah, yeah,
Basically.
yeah, definitely.
Mike, I've seen your comment because it's a long one. I'm gonna come, we'll both come to it in after we finish because it won't even fit on the screen, and I want to make sure we cover it off for you. We've got another one here from Ipsiter. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I know you said you were going to come and watch today. Actually, you were really keen to see the chat with Will. What is your view on adding offshore experienced recruiters to support on small and admin tasks and upgrading internal team? I don't know why I'm reading it to you because everyone can read.
Just about.
Just about, yeah. Internal
Yeah.
team of recruiters to improve the business process and delivery.
So do you know what we've used kind of offshore and VAs and whatnot, and we've worked with some really, really incredible people who added huge amounts of value to our business. And for a lot of places, that'll work incredibly well, like really, really well. The reason why it didn't work so well for us was completely my fault. It was because I was so time poor. I found it very difficult to give coherent instructions and like clear guidance on what I needed and what needed to be done, because there was an assumption and a presumption from my perspective that there would be an understanding of what I needed. Like, oh, I need you to grab a data list of 35 MDs in London who do this or do whatever. Right, for me, that in my head, that's a clear instruction. But actually, I forget that someone, who's receiving that instruction might not get it and needs time and guidance and support to do that. In
Yeah,
the office, I find it a lot easier to communicate with someone directly and, kind of do it then. When someone's offshore and they're kind of elsewhere, I found it a lot more difficult to manage. But we've worked with some really, really great people who are offshore and remote and did a fantastic job for us. But like,
yeah.
it doesn't work for me and it's really because of me. It doesn't work because of my style of kind of communication and how I can kind of do it. Like, a bit typing out detailed emails is not a good like strength of mine. Like, I'm so time
I can
poor. Like, I
resonate. Honestly,
yeah,
I'm the
it's
same.
difficult.
I'm exactly
Yeah,
the same. And I've got a VA who's based in Pakistan, and he is absolutely brilliant, right? But the learning curve for me, same as you at the start, was he's not a mind reader, and
mm,
a little bullet points are not going to slide, Kate. You need to be a little bit more detailed.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I know what you mean on that one.
yeah.
One more question before I do a roundup, and then I'm going to come back to Will for a top tip. I think this is a great question, Joshua. Do you think processes need to be made dependent on the type of individual?
Yeah, I do actually. And it's a bit more kind of labor intensive as a person like implementing and writing the processes, but not everybody learns the same, and um, not everybody's mind works the same. Now, I do feel as though there needs to be like a top level way of doing things, as in, this is how you get from A to B, this is how you make replacements. But
Yeah,
actually within that, different personalities, whether someone's neurodivergent or dyslexic or ADHD or whatever, their optimal way of working, needs to have a bit of variation to someone who isn't, or someone who works in a different way. So actually, yeah,
yeah,
doing tweaking processes based on type of individual is really important. And actually, a really good manager, a really good ops manager, will be someone who's very good at identifying what will work better for other people and implementing it. Again, one of the mistakes I made at the beginning was just assuming that everybody would work in a very similar way, and you just have a blanket set of KPIs, 10 calls to you a day, 10 calls for you a day, or whatever would
yeah.
work. Like, but I found out very quickly that it just doesn't. Everybody's different, and good managers identify that and treat people accordingly for sure.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that, Joshua. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick roundup of the next guest. Now, I hold my hands up. I've had a Christmas break and I forgot to follow up with the guest and get the information on what they want to talk about. So I can tell you the guest, but I can't tell you what we're going to talk about yet because in all honesty, I don't know. So I've got Louise Triance on with me. I always think I'm pronouncing her surname wrong, so I'm sure she'll correct me when she next comes on. Anybody that goes to any of the recruitment expos or any of her events, because they're always amazing, I'm sure you will know her. I'm really excited to have her on. Really, really excited to have her on. So the next show is on the 22nd of January. Normal start time, 12:30. You will know what we're going to be talking about the week before, because I will put the event up on LinkedIn and you'll all get invited, and then you'll know what we're talking about. But just know it doesn't matter what we're talking about, because it'll be good anyway. So that's fine. Next time, I will make sure, I've done this a few times recently where things aren't in on time. I will be more organised next time, I promise. Okay, so coming back to you for your top tip, run your own race. We had a little chat about this in the green room before, and I think this is a really good tip to give people. But what do you mean by this?
Yeah, so I'm very guilty of looking on social media, and particularly LinkedIn, and kind of comparing myself to, peers, other businesses, all of that kind of stuff, and actually believing everything that they say. I mean, oh my God, I don't do that. We've not done that. We've not grown that fast. Our headcount hasn't gone up that much, and it can become almost like obsessive, and there's just so much hot air and so much bullshit out there where people are trying to lie to make themselves look much more important or much more successful than they actually are, to try and portray this image.
Yeah.
And actually, you just got to not compare yourself to anyone else and just run your own race. Just, judge everything based on what you're capable of and what you're wanting to do, and also remembering that everybody's lives are different. Everybody's got different stuff going in their lives, which can, make it a lot more difficult to be successful and run businesses. Like my kids, they're so kind of, I spend lots of time with them and it's lovely, but that is time that I can't then be spending on the business, which is fine. I love that. But other people can spend 18 hours a day running their business and they have a lot more time to do it because they don't have kids or whatever. So comparing yourself against people, it's like apples and pears. It's pointless really. So, not believing everything you see on LinkedIn and not taking everything to heart, and actually realizing that just because someone else has had their record breaking year, and you've not, doesn't mean that in any way, shape or form they're more successful than you because you're running your own race. You're not running against them.
Yeah, and also their record-breaking year, the amount could be the same as what you've had that year. It's just you're not your record-breaking year.
Yeah.
What is that saying? Is it comparison is the thief of joy? Have I got that
That's
right?
it. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so true, because I do it sometimes. So I might be scrolling on LinkedIn in the evening or whatever, and I might see a post from, I don't know, another supplier or whatever like that, and think, oh God, like haven't been out all week delivering training face to face. And I feel that sort of heart sink sometimes. And then
Yeah.
I'm trying to be better now, sort of like snapping myself out of it and being like, right, hold on a minute. You don't actually know that's true. They're doing, it doesn't matter what they're doing, focus on what, trying to have that sort of positive conversation. But I try not to scroll as much on LinkedIn on the feeds, just because, yeah, I mean, you can get sucked into the bullshit. I'm not saying everyone's lying on there, because they're not,
Just
but
most people.
some people are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And as like Ross said, delete the app from your phone. Do you know what I found helpful actually is I've got a reminder in my diary, 5 o'clock, turn off notifications. Turn off my notifications for WhatsApp Business and for LinkedIn. My email notifications aren't on anyway, so I don't get as tempted to go on. But yeah, I need to maybe delete the app at some point. I feel like I'm not quite ready to do that yet.
That's
But
a really good suggestion, deleting the app, because when I think about it, there's probably only a few apps that I'll instinctively click on my phone regularly, and LinkedIn is definitely one of them. If I remove that as an option, then yeah, I'll just be TikTok or I don't know, whatever else I go on. So yeah.
And yeah, Luke, love the point of running your own race. So easy to get caught up on comparing yourself to others. It's really easy. And honestly, anybody that says, I don't compare myself to others ever, bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, it's a natural thing as a human to do. I think you just get better at managing and not caring about it as much. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, don't run your own race and don't believe the hype, I think is a nice way for us to sort of round that up there. Do you know what? I've absolutely loved having you on as a guest, Will. This has been a
Thank
really
you.
good conversation. The comments have been going wild with everybody getting involved. So we'll get you back on, 100% get you back on again at some point. Please keep doing your videos on LinkedIn because honestly, I find them so funny. They're
Thank you.
absolutely brilliant.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
so, Sigh, what else do you go
Oh,
on?
God.
We won't go, I know it's Recruitment Uncensored, but we'll keep that one under
Yeah,
wraps, I
we'll keep that
think, won't
censored.
we?
Yeah,
For you and me both.
yeah.
So yeah, we're all done. Thank you so much for everybody that's watched, got involved in the comments. If you've got more you want to ask, just chuck it in and we'll come to it after. If you want to watch this back, it's on YouTube. Well, you can watch it on LinkedIn, I think, still anyway, but it's on YouTube if you want to stream it. Will, what's the best way to connect with you? If somebody's watching and they're not yet connected with you, would it be LinkedIn or are you on other platforms as well?
Just LinkedIn. Yeah, I've only got about 7 followers on Instagram, so definitely LinkedIn. Yeah.
LinkedIn. Well, as long as you don't delete the app, they can obviously contact you whenever they want, can't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, thank you for watching. Remember to connect with Will. I will be back on the 22nd of January with Louise for another great episode, and we'll see you very soon. And I'm just trying to find the next banner to put on the show. There we go. See you all soon. Bye.
Cheers.